Okay, Ralitza, welcome. We're here at your testimonial after your 3-month transformation of your emotional perspective journey. I believe this is a very important moment because a testimonial is always a moment of reflection. It's always a moment that allows you to acknowledge, become aware of some things that you probably weren't aware when you acknowledge, right? Then validate. And at the end, it gives you the strength to respond. And that's what a transformation is. A transformation starts when we start a transformation, we go into everything that place that nobody knows, right? And we acknowledge that as those are the judgments, stories that create opinions, that what you think you know, that then create assumptions of what you don't know, but you could justify with what you think you know and what you know that you don't know. And then you have reactions. And then when you react, well, you don't feel that bad because you can always find a reason for that reaction in the judgments, opinions, and assumptions that you created for that reaction. So thing is that if you stay in that cycle, it's like you know that reality too well, and you know that there's a lot that you're missing out on. That's why it feels like tight, right? So once we go through transformation, we go to transform that into a pattern that you can acknowledge, that you can be aware of, that you can validate the reality of how it shows up, and then have the freedom to respond. You can have a choice. Because when you have a reason for something, there's no choice. The reason is what's logical. It becomes linear. But reality is that there's nothing linear about us. Even if what we look at outside of us looks linear, there's nothing linear about us and where we live. So coming from a more, how do you say, a holistic perspective, right? When we go through the transformation, you come to understand those two different ways of approach in practicing choice. Choosing what you give your attention to, what meaning you give to that which you gave your attention to, and how you act about it. So look at this testimonial as an exercise, right? For you to acknowledge, to become aware of, to validate, and then to have the strength to respond. Okay?
Thank you.
Fantastic. So it's really easy. We'll have a conversation. Okay? I'll ask some questions. You can ask back those questions. And really, that's it. Okay?
Great.
Here we go. So, Ralitza, to begin with, right? What would you say has helped you the most during this past 3.5 months of working together?
I think one thing for me that was very supportive in this transformational space is actually having the ability to message or call and look forward to like having that structure that we are checking in every week, that there's something that we're working on together, doing this transformation with someone else that's also going through it, being able to see and hear what's going on in their lives and see it as a mirror, and being able to actually identify, oh, that's happening in mine too, but in this, kind of unique and different way, but it's really the same thing that's being called forward. So for me, having the structure and the support has been really important because I come from sort of that transformational background. And for me, it was really important to do this work as I went into hosting masterminds with multiple different people, to be able to manage the energy, to be able to have more tools. But also I felt that through transformations I had done in the past, there were certain places that I wasn't willing to go. And whether that was because I didn't feel safe energetically, it wasn't held. It almost had to go a specific way rather than the safety and the openness that you hold, and the way that my interaction is with you, it's very permissive in that, and like any question is okay and acceptable, and there's always an answer that comes back to the principles. And so I really appreciate that I get to be exactly who I am and come with my resistance, and it's supported and reflected of, oh, this is how it's actually maintaining the resistance, right? Rather than seeing it as something wrong or seeing it as something that's getting in the way of my evolution, for example, or it's not going the right way. So the structure and really that safe space and support to bring whatever question or, whatever resistance or, even questioning the process is perfectly acceptable. It's like, oh, I will deepen in my wisdom and knowledge and understanding and my ability to transform, because that's actually elevating and highlighting where the fear is or where the, questions are, where the shadows are. So it's been a really interesting process, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that, the part of the structure. I believe it's been a fantastic, an amazing experience for me as well, to be in a container with you and someone else and teach, but at the same time coach, and then have that open container in WhatsApp where you can relate to each other. And it creates that safety where you can relate to the other as you're going through, and you can also get in contact with me anytime. So it creates that, what you were just mentioning. Thank you also for calling it out. Thank you. I appreciate that. From the tools that we worked with during your transformation, which tools would you say have helped you the most, and why? Or what have they helped you for?
Yeah. I would say I could have done better in practicing the tools each week to be more mindful of which one's helping where and how. I haven't been as diligent with it, to be very honest, the past 3 months, but what I notice myself using the most is that heart coherence, is actually catching myself in an energetic moment where I'm like, wait a second, this isn't the way that I'm meant to show up, in terms of I'm giving my energy away in all these different ways. And so let me bring this back. Let me tune in and ask myself what's really going on here, and be more intentional with how I choose to spend my time, my energy, my focus. And so that has actually transformed even my ADHD is transformed. Like I'm not as busy in my head because I'm able to pull myself back. So getting back into that heart coherent space, and me and names and titles and labels, I'm sorry, I'm terrible at it. So maybe you
It's okay. No, it's okay.
name it better than me. But yeah, which specific tool? I don't know that there's one specific tool necessarily. But being able to bring a situation or experience, and then you highlight, oh, this is something that you could use, or this is a tool that you could use, or that's a tool, that's been really helpful. I guess I'm a slower learner when it comes to.
No, I guess what you just mentioned is like an integration of them to a certain degree, in which now you're able, would you say that now you're able to recognize the frequency that you're in? And remember, at a certain point, we talked about what is and what isn't, right? How we create from what isn't, from the stories we create, and how we create from what is. And that's a very integrated part of all of the tools. So from what you're telling me, and I want to make sure this is what you mean, when you find yourself out, or when you're like compensating for something or out of authenticity, you're able to notice and then bring yourself back to authenticity. Is that accurate? Would that be accurate?
100%, yeah. And I think it's been really great to actually learn the tools of the energetic things I've naturally just started to do as I've become more aligned with my gifts and my purpose and my calling and all these different things, right? Like what I do as a coach for others, having you do that to me and also reflect to me, oh, this is actually what you're doing, and it works in this strategic way. I'm like, oh, I get it now, right? It's so a lot of the tools that you've shared there, it's almost like the fast-paced version of what I've already been doing, and it's done in a way actually for me this time to receive it, which usually I hold the space for others. So that's been really helpful as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Ralitza, if you were to share a before and after, briefly, what was your perception of your life, the relationship with yourself, with what you do, with others, with what you desire in life? Mhm. Before we met, mhm, and now after your transformation.
Relationship with myself, Alan. It was fleeting. To be very honest, it was very much fleeting. It was like, how can I show up best for this thing or work or my child or my mother or my friends, or there's always something. First of all, over schedule, and second of all, not checking in with what do I need to give myself to be able to actually show up, as 100% myself in this container, whatever the container might be. So a lot of it was pouring from an empty cup. And even though the commitments that I have are coming from a place of service, they're coming from a place that it is aligned, and it is something that it is my passion and it is my purpose. It's still coming from a place where my cup was not full, and I can recognize that now. And instead of feeling guilty about saying no, I recognize that, oh, if I do say no, it's actually going to be in service for everybody, because I want to do this thing, but I want to do it in a way that I'm showing up as my best self, because I recognize now that that energy is actually overspilled into everything and everyone that I show up for. So why would I bring parts of myself when someone else can do a better job, because they're coming filled up, right? And overflowing. So it's a lot of that sort of leaning back on that, taking personal responsibility, and then actually tuning into, what do I need right now? What do I want? Instead of feeling like I have to say yes to everybody, being able to honor my no, but honor them in my no as well. And whether that's giving a referral to someone else, or empowering them to do it themselves. That's happened a lot. People ask me to do something, and instead it's like, oh, it highlights where I can reflect that they're actually very capable in the space and they don't need me, right? And that's such a beautiful thing. So and then really being able to see life as a mirror of taking that personal responsibility to do it myself. And so, like, taking that back into the relationship with myself, rather than thinking all the time about others, right? It is
Fantastic.
that, because of the way that I function and the way that naturally I gravitate to serve all the time, it's like the biggest service that I can do is to first take care of myself. And that's been a point where I used to feel guilty, right? I used to feel bad. I used to feel like, there's not enough time, so I don't have time for myself, right? So
So you've been filling your cup.
yes. And then filling others as well by
And then,
doing
yeah,
that.
now you've been filling it for serving others, whereas before you were serving others but not filling your cup,
Yeah.
right?
But also for myself. Like, now it's like, oh yeah, right. I matter too. Yeah.
Fantastic. I remember one of the main topics that brought us together when you were referred to me was also the relationship with your mother.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, Alan, how much time do you have? Yeah, I think, it's interesting because my relationship with my mother, and someone reflected this at one point, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's almost like someone reflected that it could be a twin flame situation, but someone else said that's actually you reincarnated as yourself in a less evolved version of yourself, and now you're having to live with it. And so it's this really strange karmic relationship that I had to take that perspective and think about it. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I have so much more compassion for myself that I was seeking from her in the past. And so instead of projecting those needs onto her, I'm able to give all of those things to myself. And so when I'm in a relationship with my mother now, there's a level of detachment. There's a level of, really being able to show up as my authentic self without actually needing her validation of, does she believe in coaching? Actually, it doesn't matter if she believes in it or not, right? This is what I do. this is my life, this is how I serve, this is my passion, and it does help other people, take it or leave it, it's actually none of your business, right? And so in that, well, taking back my energy of all of those requirements of her that I had, I've actually just been able to see her as a person instead of as my mom, right? I'm not a little child anymore. I'm a grown woman. This is how I do things. And we are still living together, right? That was something that I thought I had to leave in order to have a good relationship with my mom. And I'm really happy that we've gotten to a place where our communication is respectful in both ways. We can joke about things that we have tensions about instead of it being, you know, sort of like this hot oil and water situation where it's explosive and really not nice. And sure, we still have our tensions and we still have our moments, but they're held much lighter, and I'm not attached to them anymore, which is what's made the difference. It has nothing to do with her changing. It's just my level of how much energy I put into that is different. And the frequency with which I approach our relationship is very different.
Sounds like there's much more compassion
Definitely. Yeah.
for yourself and her as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's it. Beautiful.
Yeah. And
Fantastic.
appreciation of every moment. It's like, oh, right, this is serving me in this way. I can see that now as a little more detached from the actual experience, right? So I really see the gift in every experience instead of getting caught up in the experience, if that makes sense.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What would you say has been the biggest breakthrough from your transformation?
Yeah. So I used to subconsciously take on more to prove my value and my worth, right? Whether that was in work, whether that's in responsibilities at home, whether that's in taking on more outside of home, for example, with my son's sports, offering to have kids come over or be with us or whatever. I used to be the one to always take more on, and recognizing that that comes from a place of trying to prove my worth and my value in the world. I think I haven't been as eager because I don't feel like I have anything to prove anymore. And even in masterminds, like wanting to have a mastermind to support other women, but recognizing that I'm just not there energetically. And the universe is showing me, like, not this time, right? And it's like, okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me that time back, because it really is my service to humanity. And if all of the right people are there, it's like, yes, I'm meant to do it. Let's go. But if all the right people are not, then that's okay too, right? So I don't have this need to really do anything. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And even when I don't, like, even when I, for example, this morning, not waking up, not showing up on time, missing an appointment, normally I would beat myself up about it. You know, oh, Ralitza, how could you? You're so this, you're so that, so disrespectful, and that. I would go into this like cycle. And of course, I feel bad because I do respect other people's time, but it wasn't so much beating myself up. It was really just, okay, I know this is somehow in service to everyone because it happened. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. And what can I take and learn from this? And how can I be compassionate with myself? It's like, yeah, you have been up super late every single night, dealing with all of it. And so it's not so much giving excuses, but it's really recognizing that, okay, you did need the extra rest today, and that's okay too, right? Like, these things happen and it's okay. So it's funny because it hasn't been happening because I've been so much more energetically aligned. I've been saying no to the things that normally take me out of that space where I feel like I have to rush. I feel like there's too much. I'm not showing up as my best self. And this is one thing that I really look forward to every week. And so not having the energy to actually wake up on time naturally, I'm able to actually say, oh, right, okay, it's okay, right?
I love
So
it.
it's interesting. It's different, yeah, different relationship with myself for sure.
I love it. You're definitely more present for yourself to be able to share yourself.
Mm.
You're more in a purpose-driven, uh, you would say, attitude or focus.
Sorry,
I,
it
I
cut out
I
on
I
me.
feel, would you say it's accurate to say that you're in a more purpose attitude or driven focus?
Definitely more present.
Mhm.
And because of the presence, yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. It's been an
Mhm.
honor, and so far, it's been fantastic to serve you, to be of service to your curiosity, to your openness. One thing I have to acknowledge that is fantastic working with you is that you have so many skills already developed when it comes to intuitive connection, right? Because you help other people also tap into their authenticity. So you have a knowing already about this. Not an I know that I know, but a knowing in your body.
Mm-hmm.
You already know what the frequency of what you're learning is.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to serve you in this space, for you to give yourself the opportunity to dive into what you serve, right? hmm And then you acknowledging in yourself, it's been a grand privilege so far. It's fantastic to witness, that
Mm-hmm.
in that way, that transformation. And I can only wait, to see, and that's my following question. Like, I'm really curious to know how this has been impacting in your service with your clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, the last 3 months has been a lot of it's been really taking a little bit of a step back from serving and really receiving. And so for those conversations that do happen sort of in between, and even, finishing and wrapping up the mastermind, I've received a lot of feedback from different places and spaces, and it's been interesting because normally the feedback is how great it is and what a wonderful job I've been doing and how, like the beautiful space and just all the positive things. Lately, it's been growth edge things. And I'm in a growth edge right now, right? I'm in a transformational space. And so I really appreciate, I am someone that's always focused on quality improvement. And so I've also been using metrics for my masterminds. And so being able to have that feedback and support where, not being perfect is actually a good thing. It's been really positive and exciting and also very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to hear how something, especially more recently, it's like because it questions integrity. And I've been able to actually take that back and say, okay, wait a second, what's going on here? How is this really serving me and my clients? And it's really just asking for more focus and intention and more sacredness in a specific area that I wasn't necessarily giving. Like rituals for me are not something that I feel like I have to do to bring safety. It's just part of naturally what happens. People just feel safe and they just it's like verbal diarrhea, all everything that has ever bothered them, and then they leave feeling lighter and more aligned with all the answers they were looking for. And so it hasn't been anything that I've actually felt that I need to work on, but it was reflected to me that more structure, more of that intentional sacred space setting, is really valuable and appreciated by certain more sensitive people, for example, right? So these are just reflections to me that, oh, it's a different niche that's looking for my support now. It's a different level of people who are also in service to humanity that are asking of me to serve, right? And so it's an interesting evolution. And I've also been asked to be more specific around who I choose to allow into my sphere. But to me, energetically, it's almost felt that that's out of integrity because who am I to say that they're not worthy of my service? Or who am I to say that that's not where I'm meant to serve? If they came to me, maybe there is something I'm meant to interact with them on, right? And so it's really discerning what is a projection versus what is actually a message for me. And I've taken, because I've created the safe space to take time for myself to actually dig into what does this really mean? I'm able to identify it on all the different levels. And so when a client has come back to me with something, I'm able to hold that space for them to do that for themselves as well, rather than problem solving, right? Because I'm a
Love it.
fixer.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Right? It's not
I
my
love
problem to
everything that you're
solve.
sharing right now because I can relate to exactly what you're saying right now in my own practice and how it leveled up the moment. And there was a bit of resistance between where I was and where I am now in taking a step into transparency.
Taking a step
into being completely transparent.
transparency. Yes.
Because when you're coaching, when you're serving, right, there's this preconception that you have to be perfect for your
Yes.
clients. That if you're going to teach them something, you must be successful at that with your teaching them
At all times. Yeah.
or you must be an expert, or there's an expectation that they will have about you. And being able to let go of that and then show up completely transparent, like a human being, like, yes, I am a coach, but I have my own flaws and I have my own transformation and I am going through my own path. And that doesn't mean that I cannot share with you tools that will help you get to yours. Or that if you show something that is reflecting on me, we can work it together. There's so much more human. There's so much a more human touch there than in it has to be this way, it should be this way, etc. Of course, taking responsibility of when something resonates that you have not solved, and being transparent about it just opens the space, right, for each person in the space to take responsibility for their own instead of trying to fix it when you don't even know it. And there's so many
there's nothing to
coaches.
fix.
There's nothing to fix,
Yeah.
but there's so many coaches
Yeah.
out there, or healers, right, that when they encounter something that resonates with what they have not transformed, they get fearful of it, and they judge themselves, and then in that same judgment they still try to fix the other person as a way to fix themselves, and that produces a karma cycle between both client and coach. Because it's like, I need to help, right? So it's like a trauma response now. So now
I'm seeing the ripples. As you say
now
that,
there's an attraction.
That's where that came
Now
from.
the attraction of being instead of being a service dharmatic cycle, it becomes a karmatic attraction, where both people are attracted to mirror each other to solve their own stuff.
Exactly. But some people are not willing and ready to receive that this is a mirror. And even though they're coaches, it's like, what? Am I stuck in a vortex? And then it's like, okay, let's zoom out of
No,
this.
they're stuck in the expertise and showing up with the authority. So I can definitely see that stage where you're stepping into that transparency with yourself and starting to feel comfortable with being completely transparent. So you allow for whatever that would be karmatic, right, to turn into a dharmatic experience in that sense.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we go,
definitely felt.
and as we go further into the integration part of the program, the second 3 months that we're starting now, you will start to integrate that part more. So you will definitely notice that your service is opening up and widening up in perspective, right? And I can only tell you about my own experience, right, as how different types of clients show up in resonance, right? And how I say to some clients yes, and to some clients no. I was the person that used to choose, okay, I'll work with you or I won't work with you. If I immediately sense that I am not capable, or I am not, I haven't mastered the transformation that a client is looking for, right? Instead of saying no, I can't help you, I have chosen for a while now to still give everything I can. In serving that client during the discovery part. To a point where in the clarity session, that client can also come to an understanding of where they are. And And that also clarifies for me, then when it comes to make the decision, it's a decision that goes both ways. So I'm not saying you're not worthy of my services. I'm not saying I'm not capable of serving you. I'm just saying now that we have clarity, there's a mismatch in frequency, and I would love to refer you to someone else.
Yeah, and a referral is so beautiful.
So instead of jumping into immediately saying I can't serve you from the discovery call, I go to the clarity session and I serve in the clarity session to come to clarity. And in that clarity, then is an agreement that we can't work together.
Such a blessing. Yeah.
And there's so much power, there's so much more power there because we both recognize it and we just have a wonderful experience. The client leaves with an ample perception of my work, right? And I leave with a new perspective of where I am. It's an equal exchange because even though there's no charge for those sessions, it's just a path to an agreement, which we will also get to as you go into your integration.
Yeah, I love that.
I just love that you are so much into the space now, you know, and it gives me a lot of security about, or certainty about your path and how you are integrating so far.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. And lastly, well, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to share about your before and after. Anything else that you consider that's important? Like if you were to look at this video, let's say 5 years from now, and you were in a rough patch, and there'll be something that will be important for you to see in this video so that you are always aware that no matter what you're going through, you'll be okay. What from this experience would you share to yourself 5 years from now if there was a need for you to see this video again?
I don't really see myself at that place 5 years from now of having to hear anything from a past version of myself. But yeah, I think what I'm really grateful for, I would say I'm really grateful to myself for giving myself the time and the energy and the focus on what's important to me for me, because that's something that I know is part of my transformational work through my lifetime, and oftentimes I will give to others before I give to myself. So I would say that it's that reminder that when you put yourself first, everyone benefits and everyone prospers, and that only serves even more. So remember yourself, focus on yourself, give yourself the time and the energy and commitment that you as a human being not just deserve, but it is your birthright. If you're here, why are you here if you're not going to give time to yourself? You're doing yourself a disservice and the rest of humanity. So it's like, yeah, love yourself a little more.
Fantastic.
Thank
and
you.
Lastly, Ralitza, who would you share or who would you recommend this transformational experience and why?
It's a really interesting question because right away I want to say everybody. But when I think about it, who would I not recommend it to first to be able to identify who I really would recommend it to? I would not recommend it to people who are not willing and ready to see the reflection in their own life calling them to transformation, right? Because that's a resistance that I had right from the beginning when I started learning about coaching and realizing, oh my gosh, when we say yes to our transformation, our life will just slap us like a wet towel and show us all the different places and spaces that want attention and want to be transformed. So I would say that I would recommend this to people who are really open and ready and willing and committed to seeing themselves through the process, because it is a process and there are going to be times where you just don't want to show up, and there are going to be times where they're really exciting and expansive, and transformation has all of that. right? So people who really do want to go deeper, to have a more intimate relationship with themselves and therefore the world, to really be able to be honest with themselves and with the people that are in their life. People that are ready to take off the mask, and most people that are there probably don't even know they have a mask on, right? So for those who want more depth, who want more intimacy, who want more passion in their lives, who really want to open up to that vulnerability, to that level of honesty, in a safe space, right? Because not everybody has the capacity to hold that safety. And it's okay if we show up as a total mess in this transformational space, being willing to do that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank
Thank you so much for sharing your testimonial. You know, a testimonial, the third part of the testimonial that I value the most is that one, it works. Well, the three things that I value the most about a testimonial is that one, it works to acknowledge yourself. Two, it works as something that you can always look back into. You know, whenever you find yourself like out of whack, you can always go back to that video and see it and find confidence again in you. You know, I was there, now I'm here. It's okay. And sometimes we find ourselves in the eye of the hurricane and we can't see. So having your own testimonial available to you can always recenter you, right? And the third part that is really powerful, and this is out of a choice, right? When people feel ready to, and if they feel ready or want to, is the sharing of the testimonial. You know, you never know whose life you can change. It's like a paying it forward to a certain degree. I remember in my life, it was a testimony, it was someone else's testimonial that just opened the possibility of a different outcome than the one that I was being shown. You know, and that was so powerful because it just opened a window of possibilities that I didn't know existed. And that was enough to save my life in my case. You know, so a testimonial can be so powerful in that way. So if you wish to share this testimonial and serve that purpose, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that probably are having a hard time in their relationship with your mother, or are having a hard time being able to fill their cup so that they feel capable of serving. You know, a lot of coaches out there that can identify with what you went through, where you were and where you are right now, and see that it is possible to be, you know, somewhere else. That is not, it doesn't have to be depleting all the time, you know, to a certain degree.
And I think it's really important for the piece of integrity when you are serving others. If you're not doing your own work and if you're not really taking it seriously, you are actually doing other people a disservice. So I would want every single coach, I would want every single healthcare provider to do their own work. Like if you're really asking me who needs this, is people in that service industry that are actually, you know, truly genuinely serving and wanting to help society. They need to first help themselves. And I feel that, you know, if everybody could see this, then great. Then they have the opportunity to see, oh, there is a different way. I can take personal responsibility and it starts with me. So absolutely. I would love that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
so much, Ralitza. Thank you for giving yourself the time. Thank you for sharing, for being so open about your process. I can't wait to go into the integration phase with you and then have another testimonial that will include everything that we shared here, but on another level, on a quantic awareness level. And for you ready to now, by then you will have already been attracting your clients. So I can only wait and see what will show up and be a witness to it.
Thank you. Thank you for holding this space and for guiding it in such a beautiful way. I'm like you do everything, Alan. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Have a beautiful day.